What is happening, everybody? My name is Bright Life. This is my fancy shirt, and I want to welcome you to a brand new series called MMO Musings. The idea of this series is that I want to have a place where I can just chat with you guys about things that I'm excited about in the MMO space. These videos are going to be probably less edited than my normal ones. If you've joined us for State of the MMO and some of those bigger projects, those typically take about a week to perform. These are really meant to just be a quick conversation between you and I that I can drop in the middle of the week. And my big goal is to have you guys just interact with me in the comments below. I'd love to chat with you, hear your opinions, hear your thoughts on these issues. So we're going to be covering a lot of different games and a lot of just different little topics that I'm excited about. But today I want to talk about Lord of the Rings Online's 2023 roadmap. Now, this came out about 2 weeks ago, and I really primarily on YouTube have been a Lord of the Rings Online YouTuber, and so it's weird that I haven't talked about this in 2 weeks. I've been really busy with some bigger projects, but I'm excited to finally get to this, and I want to talk about why I think this is a really big gamble for Lord of the Rings Online, but one that I'm really excited about. Let's be fair, I'm really excited about this gamble, and I think they're going to pull it off, but it is a gamble, and I want to talk about why. But they just announced a year-long roadmap, and so what I want to do in this quick video is I want to walk through the roadmap with you. I want to tell you kind of what's coming up in these quarters. I'm going to group them by categories. I think that there have been some other great videos online about the actual just talking through every single quarter. You can read, I can read. I want to actually group them and talk about what they mean, and then I want to talk about why this is a risk and what I think is coming next for Lord of the Rings Online based on this roadmap into the coming years. Okay, so let's walk through this update real quick. The first one I just want to make a big point of, and then I'll go through my kind of categories, is the new instance cluster in winter of Q1. That being 2 3-player instances, a 6-player instance, and a raid in Q1 in winter. I think that's actually pretty darn unprecedented to have a raid in Q1. That's awesome. It's very exciting. We're going back to Angmar and Karn Doom, which is even more exciting. Angmar is one of my favorite zones because it tells the story of Angmar. The zone is creepy and gross, and it should be. And we're going back to Karn Doom, which was one of the first end game expansions. It kind of makes me wonder, is Lord of the Rings Online really starting to notice this vanilla shift in MMOs in general, you know, with WoW Classic and some of these more classic servers opening up? Even within the Lord of the Rings Online sphere, we have Echoes of Angmar, which I know has been disavowed, but there's been a lot of interest in that, you know, vanilla server and vanilla experience. It's cool that we're going back to the vanilla version of the game, or at least one of the vanilla areas of the game. It makes me really excited. So if you count, that's 3 instances and a raid, which is a lot to drop in Q1. Again, granted, they did have a mini expansion that really only covered 1 instance and a couple of little miniature things in the delving system with the Before the Shadows. So they may have had time to produce this stuff, but it's exciting to see that they're really focusing very quickly on some end game content. But that's in the instance cluster, and all of that is in winter. It's in winter, and that really leads into what I'm going to talk about with this whole gamble idea in just a minute, because we're getting another raid in Q4, and we're getting quote-unquote new instances. We don't know how many, but we can assume that's at least 2. So what that means is that we're getting 5 new instances and 2 new raids. That's a lot to chew on for an MMO, especially with a team of the size of Standing Stone Games, or at least kind of what we've been led to believe is in their capability realm, but that's really exciting. The second area of updates within this roadmap that I think is really worth visiting is the systems updates. And these are not little small game systems updates. These are not like, hey, we're just going to do a little tweaking of this. It's like, no, these are kind of seemingly quote-unquote rebuilds or massive changes. Power revamp being one of them, that little blue bar underneath your health bar, talking about how that is interacted with within the game. That's a big deal because power's kind of been negligible, at least for me playing the game. You rarely, if ever, run out of power, and so they're trying to refocus on what it actually looks like to revamp that power system. There's going to be crafting revisions. Ever since the introduction of the legendary item system, especially weaponsmithing has really fallen by the wayside. It hasn't really been needed, but it's cool to see them going into this and saying that we need a new crafting system. They're talking about this like a revamp, a complete overhaul, and this is exciting because I think a lot of MMOs have started to take crafting a lot more seriously, especially with the introduction of New World. Crafting is a big deal for a lot of players, and it's one of the reasons they play these games. And so I'm excited for this. I'm excited to see what they do. There's going to be class updates, so class tweaks, one of them being my favorite class, the Warden. Please don't break my class SSG. Monster play events, landscape updates, and I have it on pretty decent authority that there's going to be big PvP updates as well, but we're going to let that one come whenever it comes. But needless to say, there's a lot to work on there. Those are not little small tasks. Those are big things. Those are going to take a lot of balancing, a lot of work, a lot of coding, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see them doing that. Now, there are some other updates that are notably absent from that, especially from my last video, like things like lag updates, things like graphical overhauls, system engine overhaul, like we've talked about. I do think that could still be coming in the future, but they're probably trying to get the game set before that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then there's the not so small third one, mostly coming in Q4 of the expansion. UMBAR is going to be our next expansion zone, and side note, very, very, very excited about this. One of the biggest strengths of Lord of the Rings Online is their world building. They build some of the best zones of any MMO. In fact, I would stand and die on a hill that would say that they build the best zones in any MMO, and I'd put that up against Final Fantasy, against World of Warcraft, against New World. They really just do a great job of building gorgeous, incredible zones, even with the engine limitations that they have. They're insane. They're incredible. Like, I literally cannot imagine what LOTRO would be like in like Unreal Engine 5. It would be like the greatest, most beautiful game in the world. But either way, big expansion. Very excited about this. They always do a great job imagining up zones, so I'm excited to see what UMBAR looks like, especially since the Peter Jackson movies didn't really take us into UMBAR. I'm very excited to see what they do. There's going to be a new class included with this, so that's another big deal. We don't always get a new class with an expansion, but here we are getting a new class. My bet is one of two things, either some sort of pirate, UMBAR, Corsair type class. I don't know how that would fit into the free peoples kind of a thing, but it could be there. And then the second one I would really love would be the elves from Helm's Deep. You know, like I would call them the elf sentinels. I want them to have those big, awesome two-handed elven swords and a massive longbow. Make them be tanky, but make them be able to heal as well. I'm in. That will be my main class if that happens. We also, of course, get a new story, and SSG is famous for their storytelling, and then new areas and biomes as well. So massive, massive, big expansion. Overall, very, very happy about this. But I want to talk about why I think that this is a gamble, because I think what it goes back to is what Orion said in the paragraph above this expansion update in the blog. It says this: ambitious. That is the single word that I would use to describe the goals for Lord of the Rings Online in 2023. And I think he's right. This is ambitious. To put this next to another game would be to maybe put it next to a World of Warcraft. They recently released Dragonflight, and in Dragonflight they had 1 raid and 8 instances. And that comes after years of development. That would be around 3 years of development. Typically in World of Warcraft, every 2 to 3 years, they release an expansion. They have 8 dungeons and they have 1 raid. And then typically in the off years, they'll release 1 raid, maybe 1 dungeon. What Lord of the Rings Online is doing is they're saying we're going to release 2 raids and at least 5 instances. Let's just say that 1 raid were to count as maybe 3 instances because of how long they typically are. You could say that that's pretty on par with what World of Warcraft is producing over a 3-year time period, yet they're going to be doing it in 1 year. That's ambitious, and that's really exciting, and it's awesome, but it's very ambitious. But here's why it's kind of a gamble. This is a public perception gamble. Here's what I mean by that. Lord of the Rings Online and Standing Stone Games has both positive and negative public perception. I think due to the lag and the engine update problem and all of those things, the public perception of Lord of the Rings Online and Standing Stone Games is that they can sometimes overpromise and underdeliver. If you look back on some of my past YouTube videos, you'll see that people, when I say that, hey, I think they're going to fix the lag, and they're talking about fixing lag, and I really think that this is coming in the future, there are a lot of comments that say, dude, I've been playing this game for 6, 7, 8+ years. SSG has always said that they're going to fix lag, and they never do anything about it. Now, I don't necessarily think that's fully fair. I think that they have been working on lag, and it seems to be getting better from my point of view in playing this game. However, the public perception is a big deal, and it's a big gamble to promise so much, especially if you can't deliver on it. Now, here's the thing. These are big promises, but there are 2 really important things when it comes to this gamble. First of all, I'm really happy that they're taking this gamble. I'll talk about why. And 2, I believe that they can pull it off. And again, I'll talk about why. I think it's really important to say that. This is a good gamble. There are good gambles in life. Asking that person out on a date that you've been worried about asking out, that's a good gamble, Going after that new job that makes you happier, that's a good gamble. And I think in the same way, putting a lot of things on the roadmap and having your team strive towards an ambitious goal is a good gamble. So let's talk about how this gamble maybe could not work out. Now, one of the biggest ways to think about it is if the raids were only 3 bosses long. Kind of like the Hidden Horde only has like 3 or 4 bosses. I'm not very good at endgame, so don't judge me, but it's a pretty short raid compared to maybe the Rift of Ner'zghazu, which was at the end of Shadows of Angmar. I think that these raids need to be real raids. It's one of the things that I'm really passionate about. I don't know if everybody agrees with me on this one, but I think that raids need to be at least 6 bosses long, and they need to take a couple of hours to really complete. I think that's what makes an MMO raid really feel worth doing. So I think that we'd be in trouble if they say we've got 2 raids, but each raid is only like 3 or 4 bosses long. That's really just an extended instance. That's not really like a raid. And then I think if the new instances don't feel innovative, I think that we'd be in trouble. I think that if they're all just copy and paste, 3 bosses with the hardest one being at the end, but they're really only hard, not with mechanics or anything like that, I think we'd be in a little bit of trouble. I think if UMBAR underperforms, I think it could be in trouble just because you've promised so much that people that really care about those things could maybe feel let down if that doesn't happen. But again, that's more the danger of the gamble. There's the public perception gamble because you need a positive public perception to really grow your MMO. That's one of the most important things is in order to keep people engaged, you have to have positive public sentiment. And if you overpromise and underdeliver, that sentiment goes down for sure. Now, I don't necessarily think this is going to happen, but the reason I think I'm really happy about this is because I truly believe that Lord of the Rings Online has more unrealized and unrecognized potential as an MMO than any other MMORPG. This game has such incredible world building, and the IP is loved by so many fans. And to be totally frank with you, so many people know about LOTRO that don't play it. And I think the reality is there's a huge audience out there that's looking for Lord of the Rings Online to be a great MMO again, in that top 5 potential MMO category. I mean, if you look at 100 million people watched Rings of Power, love it or hate it, that's a lot of people that were interested in Lord of the Rings. 150 million copies of Lord of the Rings, the book, have been sold over the years. There's a massive crowd for this, and I love that Lord of the Rings Online is starting to take some ambitious looks at something. They're looking at a plan and going, let's not promise little, let's go big this year. Now, with that unrealized potential, I think that SSG and Daybreak Games and all the people that develop this thing, I think that there are 2 things that this big ambitious roadmap shows me is that they're really trying to take advantage of the fact that there is so much potential in this game. I mean, with this roadmap, here's what I'm seeing. 1, Standing Stone seems to have a little bit of a fire underneath them right now to compete on the MMO stage again. I think there were a couple years where it just seemed like they were kind of coasting. This is definitely not coasting. They're putting their foot on the gas, and that's exciting. Now, is that Daybreak Games kind of going, hey, you should be bigger than you are, so we're going to need to fuel you with some money, but you got to deliver? Is this Global Enad 7 going, hey, you're our big property right now, we need you to start delivering? Maybe it's Standing Stone Games just going, hey, we really believe that we can compete in this space, so let's really go for it. But I'll say that this right here, this Q4 roadmap is going for it, and that's really exciting to me. And I think the second reason I'm really excited and I think that this can work and I'm happy with this big gamble that they're taking this year is because they need to make big moves to be a top 5 MMO again. This game has to make big moves. There are so many games that are so far ahead of Lord of the Rings Online with their systems, with some of the things that they do, that LOTRO's got to catch up, and it's going to take big moves. And if you don't have an ambitious road plan, then those big moves are going to take years instead of the year or 2 that it needs to take in order to stay relevant with the gaming community. So again, I'm really excited about this. I think it is going to be a gamble. I think that if they don't deliver on this, if they don't deliver well on this, I think public perception definitely goes down and it would not be the best thing for the game. But if they can deliver, if they can deliver a great year this year, I think that the future is bright, because if they deliver on all of these things, there are really few systems in the game that I see outside of the major overhauls that need to happen to graphics, to lag, maybe a console port, things like that really need to happen to make LOTRO incredible again. And of course that's exciting because I want more people to play this game, but 2, it's also really exciting because I hope that means that in the next year and the year ahead after that, that they'll be really focusing on those big issues like lag. They'll be focusing on the big issues like a graphics overhaul. Things like that make me really, really excited, and I'm excited to see what happens. But friends, that's my thoughts. Those are my musings on LOTRO. What do you think? This is a conversation, so leave me your thoughts in the comments below. Am I smoking the hopium? Am I way too high? Am I way too low on this? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Friends, as always, if you liked the video, hit the like button. It actually really does help me. If you really loved this kind of content, please let me know in the comments below and hit the subscribe button. I'd love to know if you want more stuff like this. And then lastly, but not leastly, and most importantly, you're more loved than you know. You're more valuable than you realize. I hope you have an incredible day, and I will see you in the next one.